let's keep reading Tim Hegg here real quick, and we'll just use the last few minutes to read down through this paragraph, and then we'll draw the comment to a close. This is the technical part. I'm trying to get this out of the way. For those of you who can stomach it and who need this part of it, please bear with me. For those of you who, if this is too technical, you're fine to fast forward through the video or fast forward through my YouTube, these parts, and jump straight to the theological parts that we're going to look at later on. But for those of you who need the technical parts, just buckle in. Tim Hegg continues, the point of Greek grammar that should be mentioned here is that the noun theos is definite even though it lacks the article. Did you catch that? Even though there's no article there, we can imply it from the context. Though some dispute his findings, most agree that E.C. Caldwell sufficiently demonstrated that predicate nominative nouns, which precede the verb, as in the case here, drop the article. So, the anarthrous noun in the final clause of the first verse of John is just as definite as the articular ton theon of the preceding clause. Remember, ton is the, theon is God. Ton is the article, theon is the noun. So we definitely have an article there, but just because theos in the third clause doesn't have a ton or a ha or any article, it still can be registered as articular. But we may ask ourselves why John chose to write the final clause this way when he could just as easily have written ha logos ein ha theos, right? Notice we have two thes. Ha here is the, and ha there is the, meaning the word was the God, marking the predicate nominative as clearly articular. So he's asking the question, why didn't John include two thes? And we'll close with this, starting right here. The answer lies in John's desire to maintain both the equality as well as the distinction between God and the Word. Having just written, and the Word was to the God, had he followed this with, quote, and the Word was the God, right, to thes, John would have diminished or even contradicted the clear distinction between God and the Word emphasized in the previous clause. John is not simply saying that the Word is divine, though that is true, like Dr. White was talking about. He is divine. He's not just, and he's deity. So the Jehovah's Witnesses have a little bit of credibility here. The Word is divine. The Word is deity. The Word has a divine attribute about him, but he's not merely a lesser God. He's not merely a small God like the Jehovah's Witnesses are left to conclude. Rather, and here's what Tim Hegg says. John is not simply saying that the Word is divine, though that is true, nor is John saying that the Word and God are a single identity. Though the absolute unity of the Word of God, of the Word with, that is to God, remember pros ton theon, to God is clear. Tim Hegg continues or concludes, in typical Semitic fashion, listen up, John is affirming two realities that otherwise appear contradictory. So it's that whole Hebrew logic where we have both this and that, where we have a mystery, a paradox, okay, kind of Hebrew tension. This is typical Semitic Hebrew tension. The word Yeshua is God while at the same time distinctly identified as the Word who shares a unique relationship with God. Yet John feels no desire nor compulsion to unpack this mystery. In conclusion, John simply states it as incontrovertible fact and leaves it for us to accept and confess. End quote from Tim Hegg. So, in conclusion to this technical part, in the beginning was the Word, in ἀρχῇ ein halagos, and the Word was with literally the God, kai halagos ein pros ton theon, and God was the Word in the syntax, kai theos ein halagos, but we should translate it, and the Word was God. This Word was theos, without a definite article in the Greek. What does this mean? In conclusion, this means that this Word was deity. This Word was the same substance as God. This Word was one with God, but this Word was with God, pros ton theon. It was face to face with God. This Word was not merely divine. He was not merely a lesser being, a God, a created being. To be sure, he was in the beginning with God. He was not a created God. And we read that in the very next verse. 1’s in ἀρχῇ πρὸς Θεόν. He was in the beginning with God. He was not created by God. He's an uncreated person. He is a second person in view here. He is God, but he's a person that is with God. Πρὸς Θεόν. He's with God. So we can now dismiss the New World Translation by the Jehovah's Witnesses as being a faulty translation. The Logos was not merely a God. He's not a lesser being with divine qualities. He is God. He is divine. He is deity. He is fully God. He possesses all the qualities that God has. And that'll end it with the technical part of it. Next week, we'll turn our attention to Dr. Dale Tuggy's view of who this Logos is. And then we'll also begin to look at word theology and ancient Judaism by using Dr. Stern's Jewish New Testament translation, Jewish New Testament commentary to talk about this word in ancient Judaism. And then we'll also continue down through my own article about the word according to Judaism and look at this fascinating view of how the Targum, which is an ancient Aramaic translation, paraphrase really, of the Hebrew, which was in existence couple hundred centuries prior to Yeshua, so it's even earlier than the New Testament writings, and how the ancient Jewish theologians wrestled with this idea of God and his eternal word. With that, let's draw our study to a close. Amen. Amen.